Hi guys, Bellados3D here with another modelling video, and today I will be modelling this candle that you see on the screen. So without much more ado, let's get modelling. And here we are in the modelling layout, and as you can see down in the bottom right hand corner, as always I have the screencast keys enabled, which means you can see my mouse inputs and keystrokes as I make them. This will make it a lot easier to follow on. Right, let's go into the front orthographic with 1 on the numpad, select the model, GX, and bring it to the left, just to get it out of the way so we can model our model. Now we need a cylinder, so let's press Shift A, mesh, and cylinder. And I'm going to make sure the vertices are on 18, so we don't have so much geometry. This is supposed to be low poly. So let's go into edit mode, select everything, GZ1, and that brings the model up to above the red line with the origin point at the bottom, which makes it a lot easier to scale and adjust in object mode. So I'm going to go back into object mode. I'm going to scale down. I'm going to scale all the way down so that the width of it is about the same width as the candle. Actually, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger than that one. That could be a bit bigger, actually, just a little bit. About there. Excellent. As always, in object mode, when you're scaling, make sure you apply the transforms. Press Ctrl and A and scale. And then we can go back into edit mode. Press 3 to go into face mode. Select the top face, G, Z, and we'll bring it down to about the size we want our lip. Let's go about there. Now I'm going to make this a little bit more curved. I think here I'm gonna make it a little bit flatter in that way and then curved up. So let's press E to extrude, and we just want to bring it up just a tiny little bit, and then S to scale and bring it in just about there, and then E to extrude again, and we'll bring it up to just about there so it's in line with this piece here, and scale that right down. We want it down to about there. Now that looks a bit better. Maybe we need to go into edge mode with 2, select that edge and just scale that out a little bit more. Don't need it that much. Excellent. Now we need to put a edge loop in there with Control R, left click, right click to set the position, and then just scale it in just a tiny bit so we get that curve. And if we press G and G again, just to slide down so it's a bit more equal, and we can press Control B and bevel that up, and that gives that a bit more of a slope. I think that looks a little bit better as a candle base than that being straight to the edge like that. Yep, I think that looks good. So next, let's make the stalk of the candle. And we want to go back into edit mode with tab and select this face again. Make sure we are in face mode by pressing 3 in that face mode. And then we want to press E to extrude, and we want to bring it all the way up. Now that's a bit wider than we want, but you'll see how it goes in a second. I'm going to make it a little bit taller on this one. I'm going to make it up to about there, I think. That should be about right. Now, we've got this decoration on the stalk here. We've got a piece down the bottom. So let's put an edge loop in there. Control R and slide it down to about the right height. So about there. And what we want to do is add another edge loop above that to about there. And then in face mode, we press Alt and left click this edge loop. And then if I press S to scale, and then Shift Z to exclude the Z axis, it will just scale in like so. And then we can bring that in like quite nicely. Excellent. Now, obviously, that's a lot more curved, so we can now, in edge mode with 2 on the keyboard, Alt and left click this loop down here, GZ, bring that down like so, Control B, and maybe scroll up 1 to give it an extra loop, and then even them out so they're quite an even sort of slope on that. And there we have our first bit of decoration. Now in the top here we've got 2 more pieces of decoration, so let's press Control R and then scroll it up once, left click right click, and then Control B and scroll it out. There we go. Now this middle loop on each one, we can Alt and left click, Alt Shift and left click, and press S. And again, excluding the Z-axis with Shift Z. Just scale it out like so, and Control B, bevel. So we now have the stalk of our candle. So now let's make the cup of our candle. So let's go into edit mode and make sure we're in face mode with 3. Select that. Go to front of the graphic, and I'm going to extrude this up to about where we need it. And we need it just below that lip. So about there should do the trick. So it's just in line with this piece here. So let's scale out and bring it out. And I think we need it about there should do the trick. Excellent. So we now have our basis of our cup. Now we need to add some geometry to that. And I'm going to actually bring that up a little bit because I just realized we did actually bring it up a little bit on the stalk. So let's make it a little bit bigger. And let's put an edge loop in the bottom there and scale it out like so. And we do it quite a bit about there. Yep. Control B and bevel it. So we now have the shape of the cup. And I think that's not too bad. We might want to take the top and GZ and bring it up a little bit more. Yeah, I think that looks about right. Okay. I say it's not going to be exactly the same as the original, but it's going to be a close approximation. So let's take a look at the top. Let's press I to inset and just bring it in probably about so far. We don't need it huge. Lip, that's it. And then E to bring it down, but don't bring it down too far because you'll go through the bottom. So bring it down to about there, and then scale it in and just bring it down a little bit more about there. That should be enough. Okay, so how do we put this lip on there? Well, that's actually quite easy. Now I just press Alt and left click on this edge loop here. I'm going to press E to extrude. I'm going to bring it up to about how high I want it. And I'm going to press R, Control R, put an edge loop in there. And a Control R to put an edge loop in there. So if I now select that edge loop and press S, I can bring it out quite a distance there. And then I can Alt R and select that edge loop on the top. GZ, bring that up quite a bit there. And maybe bring this out just a little bit like so. Maybe a little bit less on that. Just bring it in like so. And I think we need to bring this one up just a touch more. GZ, bring it up. We can bring this one up as well. And then we can select these 3 edge loops like that. And Control B and bring them in. I just want 2 segments on this. Come on, where are you? Nope. Control B. Oh, just bring it all the way down. Just want the 2. There we go. And that gives us the lip on the edge of our cup there. So before we move on, let's tidy up this model. Let's give it some colour and shade it smooth. So first things first, let's right click and shade auto smooth. Now that looks quite nice, but it's not quite defined on the edges. Some of the edges are nice and sharp, but it's not quite defined. Let's take a look where we can actually make some differences. Now I think with this, we've got a bit too sharp an edge there. So let's go to our data tab. Where is it? Data tab, that one there. Go to normals, and let's bring this up to maybe 50. And that smooths it right off. But that means we've lost our definition there. So what we need to do is wherever we need a sharp edge, in edge mode with 2, let's Alt left click and Shift Alt left click these edges that we need a bit of definition on. And what we can do is select them like so. And obviously these edges like so. We can press the right mouse button and create mark sharp. Now when we come out of edit mode, you can see that those are defined a little bit more. Right, so that's the smoothing and the mark sharps. Let's add some colour. So we're going to go into UV editing mode, and I'm going to turn on my screencast keys again, because whenever you switch between layouts, for some reason, it disables without turning off the screencast keys. It's annoying. So let's find a nice colour for this. Now, I've got my palette here, and we have our metallic here. So let's go into edit mode, select everything, U to unwrap and R to reset. So each individual polygon is taking up the whole of the UV space. So A, S, and 0 to bring it down to a tiny little dot. And let's bring it over to our metals and get our metals in there like so. First things first, though, we actually need to add this material to the model. Let's go into material preview and go to our materials tab, press plus, and then with this little drop down, select the main palette. Now that model has this texture on it, as you can see. Well, that's a nice colour, isn't it? Let's see if we can find a nice gold colour. So let's bring it into about here. I think that looks quite good. Although, let's try a yellowy sort of colour. So we got golds and we got these golds down here. No, it's a bit too yellowy, that, isn't it? No, I think I'll have that coppery sort of colour. I like that coppery sort of colour. It's a nice colour. Right, okay. But enough procrastinating about colours. Let's get on to making our candle. Now we're going to head back into modelling mode and then into edit with tab. Now let's turn on our material preview and again turn on our screencast keys because they've disappeared again. Press 3 to go into face mode and select this face here. I need to press I to inset to bring it in. 1 to go into front orthographic mode, and E to bring it up. I'm going to bring it up. It's going to be a little bit higher than the other one because of that, because of the extra I put onto the bottom there. But that's more than enough. Excellent. Now we need to make that slope on there. So let's take a look. Let's R rotate. Now obviously that shrinks that down, so let's scale that up a bit. Let's bring it up like so. Maybe a little less. Scale it in. That's it. So we then have the slanted shape. Now obviously we want to make that all jagged, but that's the final piece for the candle itself. What we need to do now is press I and bring that in, and I need to bring that into about there. I again, bring it in, I again, bring it in, I again, bring it in, and then finally one more, bring it in like so. Now if I press Control plus, it selects each of the loops. And what we need to do is just press E just to bring it down just a tiny bit. And that just gives it a little bit of a lip on the edge there, which we can manipulate later on. And now I just want to select this central piece like so. And we're going to use proportional editing. I'm going to turn on proportional editing, and I'm going to make sure the proportional editing is in sphere. And if we press G and Z, you see the circle on the end of the cursor there. And as I move down, it brings all the other geometry with it in a nice smooth curve. So we just want to just bring that in like that. And that gives us our dip where the candle has actually burnt away the wax. So again, what we want to do is 2 to go into edge mode. And I'm going to press GZ to just bring that. No, I need to turn off proportional editing GZ, bring that in, S to scale it out, just to give it a bit more of a shape. There we go. And then we can select randomly these edge loops, these edges here, like so. And I'm going to put proportional adding on again with O and GZ and bring them up. I just want to bring it down so it doesn't affect as much. And that gives it a bit of a random shape to it. There we go. And we can tweak that a little bit. Let's turn proportional editing off. We can always tweak it a little bit. Little bits that look a little bit sharp. You can always just press GZ, bring them up a little bit just to smooth it off and just go round the model. And where it looks a little bit too sharp, like here, I think we should bring this one up. GZ, bring that one up so it's like so, and it gives it the random sort of shape around the edges. Now finally we need to do is, because this is very sharp around the edge, let's go into edge mode, Alt and left click the outer edge, Control B, and we can bevel that off, and let's give it 3 loops there, like so. And that gives us our candle. And actually I've made that a little bit too deep, I think, in there maybe, or I've brought these up a little bit too high. So we can go back in and we can select this middle piece, turn on proportional editing, GZ, bring it up, scroll up the wheel and just bring it up a touch. Yeah, that's not too bad, like so. Okay, so now we need to create the wick. And I've just noticed I'd made a little bit of a mistake with the texture there. I actually unwrapped it and moved it into the metallic section for the candle, and candles aren't metallic, are they? So let's go back into UV editing and rectify that mistake. Now what we can do is we can select this face right here in the middle, and I can press Control Plus until I have all of the actual candle itself selected, and then we can just move this UV here all the way up to, I would say, maybe about there. And there we go. We have a much better contrast. It's a bit more matte. It's not shiny. And if we go into the rendered view, that looks much better. Excellent. Right. Okay. So now let's get on with creating our wick and our flame. And for that, we need to go back into modeling mode. And let's turn on our screencast keys again. There we go. And let's press tab to go into edit mode and select this face in the middle there. Now I think that's a little bit too big. I'm going to scale that down, but I'm going to turn off proportional editing first. And let's scale that down a little bit. And then I'm going to press E to extrude. Now you notice that comes out along the normals. We don't want it along the normals. So let's right click. And what that does is that creates the geometry for the extrusion, but it doesn't move it. So I can now press GZ and move that up about there. I think that's about right. So we now want the top piece flat. So with it still selected, press S to scale, Z to restrict it to the Z axis. And as you can see, when you scale, that actually turns that around. Now if we press 0, that flattens the top completely. And finally, let's add a little kink to this. So let's put 2 edge loops in there. And we're just going to just randomly move that around with the top still flat. Okay, let's get this on the right color, shall we? So let's select the top, press Control Plus, and go to UV editing. Let's move that over to a charcoaly sort of color. And there we have the wick for our candle. I think that looks about right. Okay, so next we need to add the flame. And again, let's head back into modeling mode. Into edit mode with the top piece selected like so. In front orthographic mode, let's extrude that up. And I'm going to bring it up probably about there. Now, obviously that doesn't look very good because it's black and it doesn't need to be black, but we'll get there. And I'm going to scale that right down, that piece. I'm going to go right down like so. So it's a point. I'm going to then press Control R and scroll it up so I've got 4 edge loops. Then click once and then bring them down about there. And then just scale them up, excluding the Z axis with Shift Z. And just scale them up like so. Bring that out that way. And then let's Alt Shift and left click this bottom edge loop to take that out. We'll scale that up. Shift Z that way. And then we want to get rid of this edge loop and this edge loop and just scale that one up like so. And maybe scale this one up a little bit more. And there we have the shape of our flame. It's a lot bigger than the other one. That's a lot bigger. It's not a problem, because what we're going to do now is I'm going to select this face on here. I'm going to go Control plus 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 plus, and we're going to scale that down on the Z axis like so, and then GZ, bring it down so, and that gives it much better. Let's scale it up a little bit more. That's it. Much better candle flame shape. Yeah, that should do me. Although I am going to select this top piece, GZ, bring it up a little bit more, just to give it a bit more point. And I think that looks really nice. Now we need to add the color. So let's go into UV editing mode and add the color. So let's go into edit mode with tab. For some reason I didn't have that selected. Go into there with tab. And I've already got this top face selected. Let's press Control plus to select all of the flame. And I'm going to press Shift H to hide everything else. So we're just working on this one piece. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops of faces there. So let's go into face mode with 3 and Alt left click this bottom loop. And we're going to bring it down to one of our emissive colors. Let's bring it down here. And I think around here should be nice. This sort of dark orangey sort of color. Like so. Yeah, that looks quite nice. So let's select the next loop and move that down. Not quite into the same, little less dark, like so. And then again, the next loop, G, and bring it down. And this time we're going to put it into a lot brighter there, about the middle there. And do the same with this loop and this loop. We only need the 4 colors in total, and let's bring that up to the brightest we can, like so. We have a nice bright color there, but obviously, as you can see, it's not quite right. It's very straight line. So what we need to do is, in edit mode, we can take our vertices with 1, and we can go GG and bring them up, and we can move them around as much as we like so, to give them a bit of shape. We just go round them like that. I'm going to fast forward at this point and just go through these one by one. And there we go. There's our flame, nice and jagged. And that's it. That's our model completed. Let's take a look at that in layout mode with our camera and our turntable turned on. And let's take a look at that. I'm going to hide my example model, and we're going to hit play. And there we have it. We have our cartoon low poly candle with a nice glowing flame. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope you've learned something from it, and I hope to see you in my next video. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button if you want to see more of the same.